Hello, sweet friend. My name is Micah, and as you can see from the setup, we're gonna have a cozy ink swatching session. I was in the mood for swatching some inks and talking about colors, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And all of these inks, there's about 12 or 13, I think, are provided by Simone from the channel Simone. I'll have her linked. She so kindly and generously sent these my way. So yeah, let's get into it. We have some samples, we have some bottles, and just a huge variety of colors, which is really, really fun. So the first one that we're gonna take a look at is Sailor Pen Show ink from 2023. And this is colorful and bright and cheery, and here, let me show you. Look at that. Isn't that just absolutely joyful? I think that is just cutting through the gray. If you're having a gray day or when the weather gets worse, I think that just is one to brighten the spirit. So this is Sailor 2023. And yeah, I still haven't bought a feed for this, which is kind of, I'm annoying myself. Pen Show ink. That's really cool. Wow, that is really strange to write like that. All right, so that's the first one. And similarly, we have another Sailor ink that is also very bright and also very fun. Oh yeah, it's even duller on camera. This is really, really, it's not quite marker orange. I think the writing shows up pretty well. But yeah, it has more of a zing to it in real life even than what is coming up here. But that's nice too, what I see in the camera. A little bit more sorbet in the camera. All right, so the next one, also a Sailor ink in the same color family, Sailor Gentle Apricot. And yeah, this is another dose of happiness in an ink bottle, I would say. Quite a bit darker actually than the Pen Show ink. Really, really fun. This is definitely back to school crayon orange. And that, I don't mean that in a bad way. It just is a straight up vibrant orange, which is kind of interesting. And I don't know enough about this Gentle series, because I would have thought that maybe they're a little bit more pastel-y, just given the name. But yeah, I guess I don't know anything about it. That's just speaking to what it is called. Yeah, quite interesting. And again, the camera doesn't quite pick up the vibrancy true to what it is in real life, but you can definitely tell how it's quite the difference between the two. And then going on to the next bottle, or the first bottle, this is a Robert Oster Endless Exclusive Old Book Smell. Really fun. I think this is going to be a great ink for fall. And I'd be curious, I know that some people enjoy the smell of old books or library books more than, say, the smell of a new book. I'm definitely a new book girly. I like the smell of just freshly printed paper. Yeah. I think it was Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City. I think she once talked about loving the smell of library books. And I was like, really? And I'm aware that she's a fictional character, so, you know, I'm not quite sure if that is anything that a real person thinks, but probably some inspiration behind that. And then I'm just gonna do old book smell rather than identifying that it's an exclusive. Oh, and I Wow, this is gonna be horrendous writing. This is an interesting, I would say that sits between a dark red and a brown, though probably leaning more towards red than brown. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see how that comes out in a when you ink it. But just even how light it gets right there with the dip nib, I would assume that the red is more prevalent in a nib, because yeah, colors tend to come up a little lighter, of course, when they're flowing through the pen rather than with the dip nib. But I like it. It's a really rustic color, I would say. Yeah, I quite like that. I've been kind of getting interested in red inks, that's something new. And then I featured this in my currently inked because I had this in a TWSBI, but it was writing so light I actually uninked this. But this is Wearing Girl Tinkerbell, and I love, love, love the color and love the gold shimmer, but this is either I have to try it in a broader nib than what I had on my TWSBI, or I'm just gonna use it for art, like with a brush, or maybe a dip nib. Maybe this works with my Kakimori nib, that it comes up dark enough. But yeah, beautiful color, beautiful shimmer. I actually sometimes, and maybe this is not a fair thing to think, but sometimes I wonder why ink brands make inks that are too light to be readable. And I mean, again, I am somebody who likes using their inks for something fun and other than just writing. So, you know, I'm totally fine with that, but it is kind of, in some ways, it seems antithetical. Is that how you say it? Tinkerbell. To the idea of making inks which are mostly used for writing, and then to make one that is too light to be readable in a pen. But yeah, I don't know. I don't own an ink brand. I don't know what the kind of decision making is with that. And so, yeah. And again, like, I mean, this is a beautiful color. So, you know, happy to have this. And then another green is Diamine Wagner, or yeah, Wagner in German, Wagner. I feel like a lot of Americans say Wagner. Makes that real weird, the pronunciation there. This I currently also have inked in my Pilot Heritage 912. And yeah, it's quite fun, especially for this summer season here. It's I feel like it's almost deceptively unique. And what I mean by that is, of course, there's a lot of olive greens. But when I held it against some of my swatches of other olive green inks, it is very unique. There's more yellow in it than most other olivey greens, I feel like, at least that I have tried. So yeah, that's really interesting. And maybe once these are dry, maybe I can pull out some of my other swatches, and we can compare some of these to some of the colors that I have and that I've tried and that are in my catalog. I actually haven't been really keeping up with that all too well, so I'm gonna have to do some more swatching actually. And then another bottle, we have this Yosemite Green from Monteverde? Yeah, something like that. And ooh, this is a very vibrant, a very zingy green, I feel like. The undertone is leaning more towards the cooler range of greens, I would say. And then I already sort of like swatched it when I got the mail. Couldn't wait. And this will develop a very cool sheen on the edges, so that's really fun. So this is Monteverde, and I think this is the first Monteverde ink that I'm trying. So I actually don't know a lot about the brand or how the inks behave. So if you have experience with that, I would be happy to hear about it. I mean, this flows really nice on this dip nib. I do feel like sometimes you can tell when an ink is well lubricated, even on just the dip nib. I do like that sound of this kind of cap when you screw it onto the glass. And then, yeah, something that I'm really excited about is this Vinta ink, Vinta Sirena. Yeah, it seems like a really unique color, and it goes towards those sagey greens or more muted greens that I like so much. So yeah, this is I think going to be very, very fun to play with. Yeah, that base color, that is so right up my alley. Yeah, I would definitely call that a sage green, but I think this ink does some cool stuff when it dries. And also, I think my first Vinta ink, so really curious about that. Vinta Sirena or Sirena? Yeah, really, really cool. Very excited about this. Yeah, you can already tell how there's some beigey pinks coming through. Very, very cool. And then I got, this little sample here, which lost its label. So Simone, if you're watching, or if anybody can recognize the color. At first I thought it was Wearing Your Path because it seems to be like a dark green with some gold shimmer. But I think this is a lot cooler than Wearing Your Path. So I think my, yeah, I got that wrong because look how dark that is, and a bit of gray, like a lot grayer, a lot more neutral than Wearing Your Path. So that's not it. So if you have a suspicion of what this would be, well, I guess I can't write what this is. Just gonna put a question mark there so that I know that I didn't just forget to put the name on there, but I just don't know. But it's really pretty. I like the color. And I actually swatched out my Wearing Your Path sample so we can hold it up next to each other. So yeah, that is definitely not the same color. Yeah, so if you have any ideas. And then look at the Sirena. Look at what, there's like yellow and that sagey green that I had first put down now is developing almost like more into a muted teal, and then we have the beige yellow undertones, and then the writing, the way it mixes in the writing is almost gray, like a warm gray with hints of green. Fascinating. Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, and even here you can see how the Wagner is quite different from, for example, Wearing Your Path. A lot more yellow in that. Very cool. I love discovering those little nuances. I think that's very, very fun. And next up, we're going into the blues. We have Birmingham Pen Company turquoise, or fountain turquoise actually, not just turquoise. And so far I've only ever tried Birmingham Pen Company via samples that lovely folks have sent me. And so far I haven't bought anything yet, but I'm kind of tempted to try the Butcher's Broom, and that is not the... At first I thought, what a horrible name to give an ink, but I saw in somebody's video, in somebody's comments, somebody said that it's actually a plant, so it's not as bad. Because the color is, I think, goes into this direction of the alt book smell. It's sort of like a brown red, and so obviously, and then you call it Butcher's Broom. That's just horrible. And I'm actually not sure. Like, I'm swayed by names. I don't know about you, but like if something has a really pretty name, I'm more tempted to buy it. Like the Tinkerbell, I love Tinkerbell, and so that really factors in to how much I like the ink or how much I would be willing to buy the ink. And then I guess similarly, I can also be put off. I think one of their other more recent inks is called Shower Scum, and that's just like, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But yeah, this is a really nice, vibrant cyan turquoise. Yeah, this is in the lighter parts. It's going towards the cyan, I would say. But they do write so well, which is really lovely. They seem to be very well behaved. So now this sample, I had to look really closely, but I'm pretty sure that this is the Roland Kringna Blue-Eyed Mary. And usually I'm not super excited about blue inks, and I know that's, like, I like all colors, but I have really observed that I tend to get excited about blue colors and then I end up inking them up and not using the pen. Like, I tend to not gravitate towards them. And something that I am hoping to try out is to just, if I don't want to use them for writing in my journal spreads, to just try them out for drawing. And this would definitely be one of the first ones I want to try, because this is such a stunning ink. It just sings. I don't know how else to say it. Blue-Eyed Mary. Like, of course it is saturated, but it has another quality to it. And I would almost want to say it's metallic, but that's not what I mean. Yeah. I'm lost for words, but it just, yeah, it sings. Look at that. And has quite a bit of shading too. Yeah, really fascinating. I quite like that. Now we have two Colorverse bottles, and I think these are from an Inkvent, like the ones that got selected to be released this year, maybe so even. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I should have looked that up. Now this is beautiful, Da Vinci Glow. This is a very interesting light blue. I feel like I've played around with this. Oh, this is not gonna fit. I've played around with this ink a little bit, and I have the suspicion, I don't know, because obviously I don't know what the history of this ink bottle is. I almost have a feeling that maybe someone added some white lightning to this bottle, but I'm not sure. But I have tested it with a dip nib before, and it feathered on the paper. And I've also done some other experiments where it led to quite some feathering. So I don't know if it's just the ink or if this bottle has been, you know, if there's been something added to it, which is fine. It's just, yeah, I wouldn't have expected it to feather like it did. Colorverse. But it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a cottony, blue purple periwinkle, like, yeah, a cottony periwinkle, but then with yellow green undertones, or like dual chrome even. Look how cool that is. I love to paint some clouds with that. That would be really interesting. Or like a whole sky. Yeah, really pretty. Right now here it's behaving normally, so yeah, I don't know, maybe just also user error. I wouldn't discount that. And then the other bottle is Pulsar Pulse, which is a really dark blue, but with some really cool red sheen. And yeah, I'm doing it this way because the bottle is too small. And also I think my first color verse, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure. Again, I have not been keeping up quite well with some of my samples. Like, I can't just go through my catalog and think, oh yeah, here's this, here's that. Yeah, but this seems very well behaved. Super wet, and it's this dark, almost like a dark ultramarine blue. It's not quite indigo, although where it pools, maybe you could say that that's an indigo. It's a lot warmer than an indigo. It has a lot more cyan peeking through in the thinner parts. Pulsar Pulse. Yeah, super fun. And then a couple more, so we'll just move over here. Next up, we're going into, is that correct? Yes, we're going into the browns and grays. So this is another Monteverde ink, Moonstone, and I know Elise here on YouTube loves this ink, and she feels like it's a little bit of an unsung hero, so I'm excited that I now have a sample to try, because I often like her inks choices, so I would assume that this is gonna be good. Yeah, I think the camera captures that quite well. There's quite a bit of yellow peeking through right now. It shows up a little bit more brown, warm, but yeah, there's definitely almost like a ochre to it, like a dark ochre. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I think I need to ink this up. I want to try that. That might also be really pretty for drawing. It has a really nice... It has warmth to it, but it's not overpowering. That's something that I've liked about Lit de so much, which we're gonna get to. Actually, maybe we'll swatch those next to each other, because I think they have some similar qualities to it that I really like. And this sample was a lot more, but I've already used so much, and then I didn't want to ink this up as well because I wanted to have some left for swatching. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna buy a bottle of this because instant love. Because again, this is also a brown that has a lot of warmth to it without leaning red. It has more yellow than brown, more yellow than red undertones. And I guess I found out that I like that. Even though I know I said that I wanna try some red inks, but I'm more interested in actual red. Like, for example, I've been looking at Wearing Your Hook. I wanna try that. Yeah. So this is Esterbrook Lit de. Yeah, this is so... Wow, that is horrific writing. So beautiful for drawing. and it has shading to it, but something that I've noticed, especially when drawing with my inks, is that I don't want them to shade too much, because then I feel like the drawings they kind of fall apart a little bit. They crumble a little bit, because sometimes if it's a super shading ink, the lightest parts are too light, and then there's such a big contrast between the darkest darks and the lightest lights. But this one shades just in a way that makes the lines interesting without them falling apart. Yeah, so I would say they have similar qualities to them. We'll look at it once the Gérardin is dried completely. But yeah, I think the Monteverde is maybe a little less saturated, a little bit more subdued. But yeah, pretty in its own right. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, we'll definitely play with those some more. Really excited about those. And then another really fun brown, and now I have brown ink all over my fingers. How pleasant. This is Pilot Iroshizuku Songayo, if that's how you pronounce it. And this has an interesting purple undertone. Or I don't know if it's even, if you would consider this a dark purple that leans brown gray. Yeah, it's almost like a really dark plum. Yeah, actually, that is not at all a brown. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, it's just because it's dark, I guess. I lumped it in with the browns, but yeah, I wouldn't call this brown unless it dries, really. No, but that is rich. Yeah, this is like a 70% chocolate of the purples, if that makes any sense. Oh no, it does dry a lot gray browner. Fascinating. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's like it dries from here to there, and the more it dries, the less purple it looks. Is this gonna be an ink that I like better wet? I had some of those in some of the Linen Toolbar inks. It's like, no, don't change. And then I think Iroshizuku, like that. I hope so. Yeah, interesting. We'll see once that is fully dried how much of that purple is still left, especially in the writing. But can you see how much it shifts there? This is still wet. And it's a lot darker and, wow, greener. It has a green, like, almost like a top layer of green. Yeah, and it's a lot less saturated in real life than what that is. Interesting. Now here in that writing there, it's still a very soft purple. Wow. Alrighty. All kinds of things happening here. But that's the fun part about inks, right? Instead of gel pens, gel pens are always the same color. And if you want that is great. But also, why not have some fun? Okay, last but not least, another Wearingeul, A Room of One's Own. And this is, I think, with a Virginia Woolf. And you can already see it has pink glitter, which is so cool. It's almost like a pink-red glitter, actually. So we'll activate that so we can get that in the swatch, because the base color is a nice warm gray, and that's lovely. But I think what makes this really a really interesting ink and unique ink is that pink shimmer. So we definitely want that. This would be a really fun ink. I'm thinking for like November or even December, because that pink just gives it that whimsy. Oh wow, that's a really full sample. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Gotta be careful with that. Yeah, let's get a big swatch so we can really get a sense of. Yeah, isn't that so cool? I think the gray might even have some pink purple mixed into there too. It's not just the pink glitter that gives it that interesting, almost like a crackle. I don't know. But yeah, fascinating. Really excited to try this out, and I still have to figure out whether or not I like using glitter inks. A room of one's own. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep writing around circles like that, because that is leading to all kinds of interesting shapes to the letters. But yeah, I think, yeah, there you can see that the ink itself actually has pink red in it. It's not just the glitter. That's really cool. But then it does look gray in the writing, like a warm gray. I'm not quite sure if I got a lot of glitter in the writing. I like this. That's really fun. So yeah, that is all the inks. Maybe I'll come back in a moment to let this all dry and share that with you up close as well. But yeah, really fun. All right, be right back. The Wearing Your A Room of One's Own is taking its sweet time to dry. I think I was very generous over there. But I figured we compared some of these colors to some other colors in the meantime. So for the Wearing Gold Tinkerbell, which obviously also has that beautiful gold sheen. Hold on, I'll show you up close maybe before we go to comparisons. Yeah, really beautiful. The only thing I had to compare it to was Lennon Toolbar Firmament, which is one of their waterproof inks, and Wearing Gold Tom Sawyer, which the Tom Sawyer I think is pretty close, but Tom Sawyer doesn't have gold shimmer in it. And is, oh, sorry, you can't see. And then the Firmament is obviously a lot more muted and has a lot less yellow undertones. So that's those. And then for the Monteverde Yosemite Green, I pulled out Pilot Iroshizuku Shinryoku. So yeah, similar but not the same. And now that it's dried, you can see that red sheen, that halo around there. Really interesting. And I'm sorry that not only did I spell ink on my hands, but I spelled brown inks. It just looks a little nasty. And then for the Colorverse, it was interesting. For the Colorverse Da Vinci Glow, I found almost the most to compare it to, even though this is so unique, but maybe because then I was trying to match the different qualities of this ink. And yeah, even though it's in the writing, it looks fairly muted. It's interesting that in the swatch there's so much of that bright purple showing, and then you can see that yellow there in the middle. Really interesting. So I pulled out Octopus Fluids Gray Meerkat, which is one of their waterproof inks, which, I mean, is similar but not really a match. Then we have Van Diemen's Blue Jay Crown, which I think picks up where this ink, where the Da Vinci Glow gets more saturated. But then in writing, the Van Diemen's is a lot more saturated. A lot more like a true purple. And then because this also has these blues in there mixed with the purple, I thought this was really interesting to compare it to Pannonia Danuvius Danube. But in writing they look very different. But yeah, kind of interesting. So that's that. And then for the Robert Oster Old Book Smell, I pulled out Diamine Ancient Copper to compare it to. Similar, yeah. I would say that Diamine Ancient Copper, yeah, is a lot more orange leaning, where the Robert Oster is more true red. Yeah. And then the Wagner, I pulled out on the yellow side, Sailor Ink Studio 670 or 670. I don't know. How do people say this usually? Yeah, which really goes well together in the swatches, but then the writing, this is definitely green, whereas this is definitely yellow. And then leaning more, leaning more towards the olivey greens. We can compare it to Ferris Wheel Goose Poupon, which is probably the closest in writing. But this leans warmer, more like muddy warm, whereas this is more saturated and cleaner, if that makes any sense. And then Robert Oster Khaki is even muddier, I feel like, than Goose Poupon. But I think if you were only interested in buying one bottle, then I think if you have any of these three, you would be fine. You wouldn't necessarily have to buy anything else. Yeah, those were the inks that sort of made the most sense to compare to anything that I have swatched recently, or ever. So yeah, but yeah, I'm really excited to give a lot of these a try. And the fun thing, I mean, first of all, it's always fun to get happy mail, but I think something that I've been really liking about these ink swatches or happy mails is that you get to try colors you might have not picked out yourself, and so you get out of the sort of usual color choices a little bit, and maybe you'll find something that is new to you and you really enjoy. So here you can see the sheen on the pulsar pulse. That beautiful dark red. That's really intense there. Look at that. Really cool. And then I did fill up this mystery ink into one of my Banu Pixies. So I was wondering, maybe seeing it in writing in a pen, maybe somebody can recognize this. I love this shade of, it's such a subdued sage green that it can almost border towards a gray, but because this has the gold shimmer in there, it warms it up in places, which makes it really interesting. And then here we have our browns, and again the Room of One's Own is still drying. But yeah, very excited about trying out the Moonstone and comparing it to Lidate. And then this is so interesting. It's such a aubergine eggplant, dark purple with green in it. Look at how green that looks down there. Yeah, fascinating. And then this wonderful gray. Yeah, I like how warm this is. Really, really nice. So thank you so much, Simona, for sending these my way. Really fun. She also sent me, she sent me so many goodies. It's incredible. She also made these folded nibs out of cans, and she sent me one, which is so exciting. So we're going to have to play around with that. I didn't have time yet to do that, but yeah, very excited for this. So yeah, all kinds of good, fun, inky stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Let me know if you have a favorite among these, or if you've tried some of these and have experience to share. Always love chatting about these things. And until next time, happy journaling!